Good evening. I hope you had a fantastic day. My name is Medrin Nyambura. Welcome to the show. This is the day. And being a Tuesday, let's take a look at something you and I need to understand, something that's happening in our country, but most of the time the conversation is not had. Many times you'll hear of people talk about racism or discrimination on how you look, but rarely does the conversation about colorism come up. If you're wondering what that is, we have two amazing ladies who will break it down for us. Closest to me, I have a lawyer and content creator. I laugh because she's her friend and she didn't know that. A lawyer and content creator by the name of Joanne, a courier, and Angela Nancy, actress, journalist. How are you, ladies?
We're good.
Thank you for coming through.
Thank you for having us.
So I'll ask you, Angela, what is colorism for the person who's at home and they're thinking, huh? Here comes another term. What is colorism?
I think Joanne would be the best person to answer that.
Okay, Joanne, go ahead.
Okay, so colorism as defined
Yes.
is the bias or prejudice of people of a certain skin tone within the same racial or ethnic group.
Okay.
So that's important to know because it's not like racism, which is I'm this race and I look down on another race.
Mm-hmm.
Colorism is people within the same tribe, within the same ethnicity.
Okay.
And more often than not, it's people of a dark skin tone who people then have a prejudice or bias against.
Okay.
Yeah.
Angela Nancy, have you experienced colorism?
See the way she explained it, like a true lawyer, like with the
But you
definition.
can explain as well. You've been through it.
I've been through it. Yes,
Yeah.
I've been judged harshly so many times because of my complexion, and you know, especially in the acting industry. I wanted to go acting full time, but it's really hard for a dark skin, especially if you're also plus size like me. It's a bit of a challenge, so I just decided, you know what, I studied journalism, I did it in school, so if there are jobs that will require my intellectual ability, I would rather do that as opposed to, you know, being judged by color. Because you know, most of the times they don't even say, they don't even give you a chance to like prove you can actually act, you can actually do it. It's because you look like already you can't fit that particular face for TV. There's a face that people used to call TV face. I don't know if still they do. TV face, yes, like the light skin, rangi athao, you know. So I don't have it.
Okay.
So it's, yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you, where does this come from? Because people would like to associate it with racism and any other form of discrimination, but specifically colorism. Where did that come from?
So the history is like we can go back many years, but in terms of the African continent, we were almost all countries in Africa were colonized, and there's always a perception that the lighter the skin, the better.
Yes.
And the closer to purity, the closer to intelligence, to charm and wit and stuff like that. And so, for instance, if you look at in America, they had they were slaves.
Yes.
And so then the dark-skinned slaves were field slaves and the light-skinned slaves were house slaves. And the reason for that is because if you're closer to the white person, then you're better. And so you'd be given less strenuous tasks than the ones who were dark-skinned slaves. And so it has a colonial and slavery nuance to it. And it's, to be honest, it's a lot of subjugation. It's just telling us that the closer you are to the light skin, the better. There's a test that was done called the brown paper bag test.
Yes.
Where you put a brown paper bag across your face, and the closer you are to the complexion, then the better it was for you, and then you would gain access to clubs and sororities and fraternities. But the farther you were from the bag, then you had no access. So, for instance, the wall that's behind you, that's like really dark.
Yes.
Then if you are that complexion, then you clearly would not gain access.
Okay.
And if you are lighter, then you get. So it's a lot of colonial and racial nuances towards it, that if you're closest to the white person, you're purer, you're better, you're then preferred, as opposed to those who are dark.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how does that make its way to Kenya, to Africa? How does that get here?
I mean, just 50 years ago, we were subjugated by the white man. So because of that, then even the colonial masters who were here did the same thing. So they would have people who are lighter, and what then came about is that colonialists would either rape or have sex with people who were dark. And then they would get what they call mulatto, what we call 0.5.
Yes.
And if you're 0.5, then you're better. And I think those conversations still stick to us this day, where you would want to date a white person just for the pretty babies, for instance.
Yes, we've had that before.
I mean, if you have a preference, that's fine.
Okay.
But this, the colonial undertones towards it, just shows that you don't want a guy who looks like you just because you won't get as pretty babies as you would have if you have gotten with a white guy.
It's also the hair. People will talk about the hair.
The
as
curly,
well.
yes.
The curly hair, yes.
Yeah.
Angela, you have a personal story that you've shared before where you had somebody who looks exactly like you, so Kenyan like you, say something to the effect of, we need a lighter person. Do you mind sharing that to the audience?
Yes, so there was a time I was really broke. I needed a job. There were no jobs, literally. And so I asked a friend of mine who was writing a script for a popular show in Kenya. So I asked him, like, if he can get me a role on the show. And he was like, yeah, I'm the one who writes the script, so I'll introduce your character. So he introduced his daughter to the script. And he, on the day of the audition, he actually made sure that no other people came, so that it was only me. So we went to the audition, and after I auditioned, when I was just on my way out the room, I had not even gone far, and the producer says, you know, your daughter doesn't have to be light-skinned. Maybe the dad was dark. Maybe the dad is dark, yes, but maybe the mom is light-skinned. So can we just get a light-skinned person, and it will be so hard to light her. Makeup is not gonna be conspicuous. And you know, I hadn't gone far, so when I turned and she realized I was listening, she was like, oh, sorry, it's not your fault that you're dark. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just that it's really hard to light your skin on set. And I'm not saying you're not beautiful, you understand, you know, that kind of a thing. And so I went home really hating myself, because eventually they brought a light-skinned person and introduced a light-skinned mom to that particular character. And I really felt I had a low self-esteem at that particular time, because it's like, it's not because I can't act. She clearly said I could do it, but the problem was my skin. So I just sat there thinking, what can I do about this? Because clearly it's working against me. It's not working to my advantage.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I think, you know, I laughed when she said about looking for a mulatto.
Are you looking for one, Angela?
That particular time, the reason would have been that.
Yes.
At that particular time, because it's like, I don't want my child to grow up and go through this same thing that I'm going through. I honestly don't want that to happen to my child. So I would rather just get a mulatto and, you know, grow in a world where everyone thinks she's pretty. Because that's the perception that, you know, was put in my head at that particular point. Yeah.
Okay. But even after that, you still chose to pursue this career. I need to understand, was there a conversation that happened after that, after the incident, from the producer?
No.
Besides the flimsy apology, was there any other conversation?
Nothing. Life went on as usual. I think I love acting. It's my happy place. Okay. So, and I can actually, I don't know if I've ever gotten a job from auditioning. Like, the jobs that I've gotten from acting, a friend recommended me, or the producer is my friend. After that conversation never happened, but I chose to go do production jobs. Okay. Because I did that in campus, and I quit acting like for a while before I came back and decided I'm confident enough to take up roles and act. So no conversation, nothing happened, and she still does not she prefers light-skinned chicks in her programs. Okay. I think on TV you see a lot of that, so you can actually understand we're not just coming up with stuff. It's actually really happening, and that's why it's really important that this discussion is
happening.
Yeah,
okay.
It's happening. Yeah.
Okay, I'm happy because your confidence and esteem are in the right place. Let me ask you, Joanne, are there careers that are assumed to be of lighter skinned, specifically women? Are there those careers that we have set the rules for ourselves?
So we've just concluded a campaign on colorism, Call My Black is Beautiful, that Angela was part of. And it was interesting because some of the girls in the campaign were in media.
Yes.
Some of the girls in the campaign were in music. One of them is a known musician, very, very beautiful. There's one who modeled at some point in her life. And it's funny because what their stories is in these places, it's so hard for you to permeate through. You'll be a B-list actress.
Okay.
You will never be an A-list actress. Or if you're going to be in a music video, for instance, chances are it's just light-skinned girls who are going to be in the video, and you will not get a chance to be in the video, if you're one of the girls who are supposed to be in the video, for instance. So mostly in entertainment and in the arts, there's still that thing for how do you look.
Okay.
And there's an example of most of the time when you're applying for a job in a media house, they will ask for a picture.
Yes.
So I kind of wonder why you want my picture before you meet me. And most of the time it's because of a certain complexion. We even just ask them, name us 10 music videos, can you name 10 music videos that have dark-skinned girls in them? And it's very hard to do that.
Okay.
Just because those spaces tend to push for lighter-skinned girls at the expense of dark-skinned girls. Even, it doesn't matter how pretty you are as a dark-skinned girl. There's this phrase for you're pretty, but you're dark-skinned. So it always feels like there needs to be a qualifier, but you're not, you're not that hot. If you were light, you would be like 10 times hot.
Okay.
So I guess entertainment still has that thing for what we see is, and what appeals is light skin. We even, try to figure out on billboards, advertising industry, who do you see on advertisements? Who do you see on billboards? Most of the time, it's actually lighter skinned girls.
Okay.
And it's perceived that is what the consumer wants. Or if I see a billboard with this thing, I might buy that product because the girl who's modeling it is light.
Okay.
And I feel like that's a fallacy and a false perception.
Okay. I'm also very happy we are all dark-skinned today.
Yes, we are making a
screen.
statement.
Because for sure here, nobody cares if you're light or dark, by the way. Nobody cares about that. Yeah. Angela, when you hear the statement, you're too pretty for a dark person, what does that mean to you when you hear that statement? And she sort of mentioned it. What does that mean?
Well, initially it used to sound like a compliment, like I'll be called Black Beauty, for your skin, you're too beautiful, and it used to sound like a compliment. But there's a statement I had her say, I was like, I so relate with whatever Joanne said.
Okay.
Because you grow up thinking that, wow, that's actually a compliment, and then boom, you realize they actually meant pretty is light skin.
Yes.
Like pretty is light skin. So when they tell you you're too dark for a light skin, for your complexion, you're too pretty for your complexion, you're thinking it's a compliment, but it's actually not. People have believed being light skin is pretty. Like that's what is everywhere. So it's not a compliment.
No, it's...
And I think the black, the dark girls need to hear that. It's not a compliment when someone says, you're so pretty too, you're too pretty, but you're dark. You're too pretty for a black girl. Yeah. They need to hear that.
And I think just piggybacking on that is the phrase Rangi Athao. So like when we, in our campaign tried to break it down, so the 1,000 bob note is the highest denomination in our country, right? And so how the phrase was coined was that you're closest to this, and so that is like the be-all of beauty, like that is the standard. So we made fun, and we even said, okay, fine, if Rangiathao is this complexion, you're 200 and you're 300 and me I'm 50 bob, because for real, because that is the aspiration. And there's a significant danger in that aspiration.
Okay.
Because we're all grown up. Angela's talking about her esteem when she was lower. Now she's busting, like she has such a vivacious personality.
Yes.
She walks into a room and commands a room. But think about 7-year-old Angela. Or a 10-year-old Angela who hasn't mastered all these things I don't care if you don't like me, I'm still going to command the room. You don't have the benefit of that. Think about what you think as you watch a series that was supposed to have somebody like Angela, but no, it's not going to have her. So you won't see any person who looks like you. In prominent positions, you won't see anybody who looks like you on billboards, in advertising. I give an example, which I probably have given too many times, but let me just give it. I always say, if you grew up in America, in and you are 100 years old by the time Barack Obama became president, you would not be a fool to think that this office is just for a white man.
Yes.
Because literally, in your 100 years, you had not seen a white man. And so when Obama became president, there was a thing that black people saw, oh, you know what? It's possible.
I can do it.
I can be this. And that aspirational thing is such a powerful thing for people. There is need to prop people who look in different ways, in different platforms, for everybody to see and to aspire.
Okay.
So that if I see people who look like me, I can think, you know what, I can do what she does. I can do TV, I can become an anchor, you know?
Yeah.
Because I know it's not a preserve of just a certain
few.
complexion. And I remember one of the girls we had in the campaign said when she grew up, she saw a news anchor called Beatrice Marshall, who was at KTN, who was like the only dark-skinned girl, or one of the only dark-skinned women there. And because of that, she thought, you know what, I can actually do this because she saw someone who looks like her.
Okay.
So I think let's not negate the importance, because I remember even offset, you were asking, some people think it's not a thing.
Somebody actually told me this is another thing you women have come up with, and I thought, my goodness. Okay, if we had the time to explain, you would understand.
Yeah.
And Beatrice is doing very well today. She's still doing her thing in the news world, so the girl can still look up to her. I'll also be asking you what the role of the men has been in this conversation, but that's after we listen to a song, More Than Enough. Send in your questions on 22316 or 0786 316 316, and we'll get to them. Arakunda by Gabi, playing on Family TV. We're also live on Family Radio with two amazing ladies. Sometimes I wish we could have a behind-the-scenes conversation, but we only have this time. And we're talking about colorism in Kenya, and specifically we look at certain industries. And I was going to ask you, even before we get to the gender issue in colorism, there's something that came up off air. And somebody said this to me directly. They said, I don't understand why you're complaining, Medrin. Lupita Nyong'o made it. Why are you complaining? We have Alekwek who made it. And on the other hand, you have people like Vera Sidika, who young women will look up to, saying, until I bleached my skin, I did not attain the success that I wanted. When you hear that argument, what would you like to say about it? Breathe.
Many things.
Breathe, Joanne.
Many things. So the first thing is I'm glad you bring out the bleaching aspect, because that's a reality. And when we did our research, we actually were able to see that the bleaching industry in Africa and in Kenya is to the multi-billion of dollars, not shillings, not Zimbabwean shillings or whatever Zimbabweans use. It's dollars, American dollars. And so it just shows you then that there is a lot of need and demand for it, and it's therefore met by supply. Now, the thing about the bleaching industry is, for the longest time ever, you would go to some road that I will not mention in town, and people would call you, if you're a certain complexion, if you pass by that road, people would call you in. And when you get in, they would then, depending on how light you want to be, and they would ask you these questions, then they would mix some concoction for you. Now, remember, these people are not trained doctors, not trained pharmacologists or cosmetologists, but they'll mix this stuff for you, and for you to go and use this duration of time. So what then happens is you become lighter, but your knuckles don't change, and your kneecaps don't change.
They're still green patches.
And then, after continued use, your skin then begins to thin, and that's very dangerous for like sun and UVA exposure. And so you find that some people who've used bleaching creams then tend to get irritated by the sun. That's not very different from people who suffer from albinism.
Okay.
That's the same thing, because you're stripping out the melanin, which is a protective layer of your skin.
Okay.
That's the first element. Bleaching is just harmful. However, let me just say a caveat is that I get people who bleach, because the society tells you that this is beautiful. You have an aspiration to be that thing. And so you will do everything, even going to River Road to get some concoction to put on your face, to meet that threshold of beauty, so to speak.
Okay.
The issue of the Alekweks and the Lupitas who have made it versus the Vera Sidikas who had not necessarily made it until they bleached their skin. It just shows you how society can be very vain. Now, the truth of the matter is Lupita and Alekwek are not the majority. When you go to Hollywood and the struggles that black actresses even have, when you hear Viola Davis, who's accomplished, who's a black, full of melanin kind of woman, Viola has been acting for over 20 years. It's only now that we see her prominently.
That's true.
So I feel like Lupita may have been, there's probably an element of luck and of timing, but I do not think that she's the majority. When you think about the global modeling industry as well, Alekwek has had some longevity, and do you know why? People call Alekwek quirky. Quirky means she looks somehow, you look interesting.
I do not like that word.
Do you know what looks interesting? Birds.
You're right.
Birds look interesting, not people.
Or when they say exotic.
Exactly.
Look
so the
exotic.
reason that they would pick you and retain you in the modeling industry is not because you're stunning, you're beautiful, you're all of those things, but it's because you're odd. So it's very important to interrogate how these people have made it to where they are. They are not the majority.
Okay.
When Vera says that she has now made it because of her complexion, it then shows you the society we live in.
Okay.
People will prop that complexion as being the standard and the threshold of beauty. And so she's in the entertainment industry, as Angela was telling us. If you've got that complexion, you have a lot of things going for you. If you don't, then you need to then be ready for a lot of rejection, a lot of many things. And that is why you will go and purchase bleaching products and now look like she looks white.
Okay.
She looks white now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just say it. It's okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, Angie, do you think there's also an element of class? There's an issue of class as well, because Vera has the millions to do it. And she's mentioned, if you go, I can mention it, if you go to River Road, I am pretty sure something will cost you, 800, 1,000 bob, and you use it on your skin, hoping to get the same results. So do you think there's an element of classism as well when it comes to colorism?
Of course, there is an element of class. You know, okay, they have the money, so even the knuckles get.
And the knees.
It's perfect. They look perfect. It's called using money to get money. I think that was the tagline at some particular time. Like, using money to get money. It's okay. It's fine. Even sometimes the class thing makes you position yourself. Like you're saying, you mentioned Lupita, and you can say like, if Angela, I cannot afford to go to States and go to Yale and get into Hollywood and all that. So colorism, okay, it borders on class as well.
Okay.
Like it really does border on class. And sometimes the particular class you're in can leave you with no options. So if I could, I would have bleached and I would not even be here today talking about this. You know, I would have been somewhere else, but I couldn't, because maybe then I could not afford, and maybe, so it really does border on class. Like if you have the money, you do it.
Okay.
And if you have a reason to do it and you have the capability to, and you just go on and do it. So
okay.
That really matters when it comes to colorism. Yeah,
okay,
so.
but I'm glad you didn't have the money then. I don't want you to bleach your skin. I don't want you to bleach your skin. But would you do it today?
No.
Okay.
I would not. I've grown to love my skin as it is. I think then also I used to see people who would bleach and they would have all this, like what she was talking about, you know, sensitive skin and all that. And at some point I just said, you know what, if you don't love me because you think I'm dark skinned, you think I'm less pretty and all that, it's really your problem, not mine.
Okay.
Because I can't help you with that. You just, you know, sort yourself out. But it took me a while to build this confidence in me, to just keep telling myself that it doesn't matter what people think about you, because then you stop being people's slave. Like if I keep thinking about what she thinks of me, but by the way, when you're in this industry, you face a lot of rejections. Even boyfriend dumping you is nothing.
And just spill the beans. What happened?
No. Okay. You face so many rejections. At some particular point, you just have to build your self-confidence on your own, because no one is going to knock on your door and tell you, oh, you're beautiful, you know, let me give you this confidence you can do it. No one will do that for you. So you just have to build it within you. So now where I am right now, trust me, if you have a problem with my skin, if you're not going to give me a job because I'm dark skinned and all that, nowadays I don't even feel anything. I mean, I'm being told like, oh, you're plus size, always do what. So it's not even about my acting. If my acting was bad, I would be like, oh yeah, I'm terrible at acting, let me go and, but it's not even about my acting anymore. So it's really something I can't change.
Okay.
And I don't want to change it. So, and I've built it like that, and it will remain like that. If you have a problem, I can't help you with that.
Okay. Just so you're listening in and just saying, Team Black Skin, I think we should all fill government offices. Though remember, the face of Nivea is very dark skin. We are somewhere. Joanne, it's not all the faces of Nivea they do certain campaigns. It's different in countries, but in Kenya you'll see the dark skin. So for her, she feels we've made a step forward. Have we?
You know, you can make a step forward, but you're like 10 steps too late.
Okay.
So it needs to be commensurate to the environment. You can't just say you've made a step forward in 20 years. So I feel like we need to hasten our steps and make more progressive steps. So this is a call to like advertising agencies and people in that industry, where if you're picking models for a certain product, make sure that you're picking people who can represent different people.
Okay.
So if it's tall, if it's small, if it's light skin, if it's dark skin, if it's chocolate, if it's plus size, if it's petite, give us a representation of things or of images that many people can relate to. I have seen that billboard that she's talking about, and I applaud them for doing that. But I'm like, well, you're like 20 years a bit late. So just try and increase that exposure for people who look like that in different media spaces, like billboards, for instance. So I mean, I do acknowledge that they have someone who's dark skin.
Yeah. And sometimes they go to the very extreme where it's nice melanin.
Yes.
So let me just move along to, there's a columnist who wrote in one of the local dailies and asked a man whether they preferred darker or lighter women. And this person said, and I quote, "Do you know how hard it is in Nairobi to find a light-skinned, virtuous, hardworking..." Ooh, I can't say this on a Christian station. Blessed behind and smart girl. End quote. So they're basically trying to say, do you know how hard it is to find this perfect girl? And perfect is light-skinned, virtuous, hardworking, curvy, smart girl. Angie, when you hear that, do men push this notion of who is pretty, meaning light-skinned women are prettier than dark-skinned? Do they do that?
Dating as a dark-skinned girl can be pretty hard. So
explain, girl, explain.
There's a time when people ask me why I date white people, but it's because sometimes they are the ones who appreciate dark skin.
Okay.
So maybe they're doing it because where they've grown up, they have not lived seeing dark skin. So when they come to Kenya or they meet you, they're so mesmerized, by you. But it could be a challenge because even when men say, "Oh, we like natural beauty," they keep saying that, like in public they'll be like, "I like natural beauty" and all that. But if I walk out there with no makeup, just like me, I will not get anyone. No one will even bother looking at me twice. This is something I have tried. But like when I dress up or when we walk around with a light-skinned girl, and then you walk around and you hear, "Hey, Sasa," and then you turn quickly, you're like, "Fiti, no, the other one." That has happened to me more than once because I have light-skinned friends.
Angie,
that
I apologize.
Happened to me. That happened to me. The first time it happened to me, I was like, "Really? Wow, just what I wanted to hear today." And he was like, "No offense, I like your friends." So yeah, so these things happen. Sometimes people will look at that. Of course, men have, I don't generalize when it comes to men because I've hung out with a lot, like a workplace and all that, and they're my friends, to know that each man is different by what they want, what they're looking for in a woman.
Okay.
But generally, men are vicious, like they like what they see, they are attracted at some point. They will not be attracted to you to want to marry you because of how you look, but the general nature of a man, they will just see and they will get impressed by a light skin, all that you're saying. Not to marry, not to date, but it's just a general thing.
Okay.
But maybe when you sit down with someone, you'll realize they like something more, like they like your personality, they like how you're dark skinned, they like how they have a different reason too. But it can really get hard dating as a dark skin. And someone will just say, "I want her because I know if I have her, no man will challenge me." I'm saying no. Sometimes I'm not saying that's what happens, but yeah, that could be something else.
I am looking at all the men. Okay.
But yeah, on the ground.
Okay.
Maybe that's not what we want to admit.
Okay.
On national TV, but that's it.
Joanne, let me get your comment on the same, because another gentleman commented and said that I think of my kids when I'm looking for a wife, insinuating why he would want a lighter skinned woman because he's thinking of the future generation. When you hear that, man.
Okay.
Ouch.
So let me first of all say that there's a difference between a bias and a preference.
Okay.
So bias is you just see Angela and you're like, she's dark skinned, out of the way.
Okay.
But preference is you may prefer people who look a certain way. So you might be attracted to a light skinned girl. And Angela and I mean, we both said we have light skinned friends. So it's not like it's a competition or a fight for want us, not them kind of thing.
Yes.
So beauty is universal. That's what we're trying to say. And so you can actually be attracted to somebody who's light skinned, somebody who's this or the other. So there's preference. And I always say, for instance, I am married and my husband is tall. And I find that would be my inclination.
Okay.
You see? So there's a preference bit to it. However, ask yourself where your preference comes from. Because many times the things that you like are rooted in an insecurity. And when they're rooted in an insecurity, you find that, because many people say, or some people say that they would date a light-skinned girl to go with them to a club or public places, but they will marry a dark-skinned girl.
Why would they marry a dark-skinned girl?
So it almost feels like we'll have fun with the ones who look a certain way, but for settling down, we'll settle down with you. There's a guy during our campaign who said that light-skinned girls are like ambulances. They make a lot of noise. Like what you know when an ambulance passes, you're like, wee, 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 wee. There's a lot of attention towards that.
Yes.
And that's why men will then tend to look, to notice because of that. But I feel like there's an insecurity that you're projecting by dismissing one complexion over the other.
Okay.
You know? So I feel like, my husband was part of the campaign and he said that his black was beautiful because there's an acknowledgement that black is beautiful. And I feel like many times the men in our society can make us do certain things. You might find a girl trying to bleach her skin because she's noticed her boyfriend always stands and looks at the light girl who's passing.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's noticed that her father always does this with, like, you get? So
I get you.
There's an influence, there's a male influence in this whole colorism campaign that if they would think of embracing beauty as is, then I feel like we would have less and less of these problems where you find many girls going to bleach their skin and many of them feeling insecure or unworthy or not beautiful as their lighter counterparts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, just got real there for a moment. It got very real.
So men need to do something.
Okay.
Men need to do something.
Okay. I'll also be asking whether men go through that as well, but we'll listen to just one song. Keep sending your comments. I'll just go through them after we listen to that one song. For King and Country, that beautiful jam called Shoulders, and it's playing on Family TV. We are also live on Family Radio, and I'm telling you, hii imekuwa moto. There's somebody who sent in a question, and I totally appreciate this question. You're saying, hi, I'm a light-skinned born-again girl. Let's get your title. Yes. Light-skinned born-again girl. It's a challenge sometimes because there's a perception that light-skinned girls are more likely to be quote-unquote promiscuous or something in those lines. We tend to get negative attention. What are we supposed to be as women? I think that's resolving to. So what am I supposed to be as a woman? Angie, do you think, do you hear what she's saying? That light-skinned women also have their own bias against them?
I've heard a comment, like a lot of times when they're picking light-skinned girls, they're usually just being picked because they're pretty. And I had a friend who was really offended by that term at a particular audition where she went to, and she was discouraged because we were, at that particular time, we were both in campus. And she was really discouraged because she said she was picked because they just needed her looks. Like, that's all she was bringing on the table. So I understand if what you call reverse colorism.
Yeah, reverse colorism.
There is a small percentage of women, yes, who go through it a lot because they're perceived as blonde. You know, like you're only pretty. That's the only thing. And even Joanne mentioned it earlier when she said like a guy would want that particular lady to walk around with, but not to marry because maybe for marriage they need a smart person or something. So What are we supposed to be? You're right. What are we supposed to be? It is there actually, but I don't know how much percentage. Like I don't know how many ladies go through that a lot. Because I know of others who don't mind being called blonde. You know, you're hiring me, you're giving me money. That's all I want. You know, even if you think I'm blonde, you think there's nothing between my ears. That's okay. I don't mind. So yeah. So really, it's something that could also be discussed. But just how many people go through it? You know, there's a larger population that go through colorism, like being a dark skin and all that, but I'm not so sure about, but they are there, so we can't dismiss.
Okay, Joanne?
Yeah. Did she leave her name?
No, she hasn't left her name. Yes,
for the light skin.
Oh, Sylvia from Kiserian.
So I think I just said that I feel her because they are the minority that many people will not pay attention to.
Okay,
and I get those back because because I think we're here as Angela, not saying that dark skin is superior or whatever. We're acknowledging that beauty is just universal.
Okay, and
so I feel her because that stereotype that there is very real. Because people who are light-skinned are then deemed, even guys, apparently, you know, during the campaign, we saw that because apparently if you're a light-skinned guy, you're less masculine, you're less of a man, you're a sissy.
Yeah.
So all of I'm like, who sits down and puts
and comes up with all these tags?
You're supposed to be tall, dark, handsome.
Exactly,
and tall, dark, and handsome.
And we were saying that the double standards in our society on beauty is so much harsher towards women because women are more. It's more of a commodity. It's more of you're beside me to look good and to marry and stuff like that. And it's a thing for how is it that the standard, the threshold of male beauty is tall, dark, and handsome, and that's not the equivalent for women. I mean, if you have a tall, dark, and beautiful woman, that is probably not a very beautiful woman because now, I'm too tall, I'm a woman, I shouldn't be so tall. There are always so many preconditions to beauty. And I feel like the starting point should just be beauty is universal. How do you look? Your nose is this way, your ears are this way, that is beautiful. It should be enough.
Okay.
I feel like we should stop society from telling us what beauty looks like and what it should then be. And so I know of light-skinned girls who actually go through that because people think, she's a light-skinned girl, she doesn't know anything. Or we'll just use her as a token girl because she's light, she'll get us into the room, but we don't really need her, she's not really smart. And that sucks. That absolutely sucks. So I feel like there is the case of reversed colorism. It's not even reversed in a sense because colorism is just the bias. So there's a bias also for light-skinned people, which sucks. It shouldn't be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting that men go through it as well, because that was going to be my question. And now when I think about it, I've been in spaces where somebody will say, that guy's light skin. No, you know, they make an assumption on his intelligence based on their skin. The world is too harsh. I don't think this is what God had in mind when he created people. Let me ask you, Angie, do you think the culture of shares, social media, who's famous, who's not, has that accelerated the colorism that we knew before?
What colorism did we know before?
This one, we know it's there, but has it been accelerated by social media?
It has been. Like most people who are faces of something or were given things to promote on their social media pages. I mean, you will see, and even there was a meme about it where someone said, dark skin posts a picture, 5 likes, light skin posts a picture, 1,000 likes, and it's accelerated it in a way because most of the pressure that we're having from the society to be a certain particular kind of person is because what we see on social media. Like we see this person is famous and they look pretty, like the definition of pretty, you know, that's rangi athao and all that, and so you're like, okay, in a way it has. Initially, yes, it was there, but social media has sort of accelerated it, and that's where you see even people having all this. Sometimes I think we're the ones who are giving ourselves the pressure, and we're the ones who are pushing ourselves to look in a certain way, you know, this fancy social media world, and you know, like we are the ones who are pushing ourselves. Sometimes it's not even the society, sometimes it's just being hard on ourselves. Like I'm being hard on myself, so I have to use the filters on stuff and all that, so I look lighter, you know. So sometimes I have to post a picture and say no filter needed, just to remind myself that I don't have to be hard on myself to appear a certain particular way for my social media pictures. So in a way, yes, it has accelerated it.
Okay.
Yeah.
John, when I look at us, we are grown, we have our confidence intact. But for me, my worry is the generation coming up with social media, and they're seeing what's beautiful, what's not. So are you worried for the young girls because of what is being shown on social?
Yeah, I mean, just as Angela was speaking, I just thought about, I don't know what cameras the studio uses here, but Kodak cameras were not intended for black skin. So, you know how white balance comes about? So you need to, if you were interviewing somebody who was white, you would not need to do white balance.
Okay.
Because, the way you take a picture and it automatically centers the face, that's what cameras were designed to do automatically with white skin.
Okay.
So how white balance came about when you're doing camera work is it needs to focus the lighting in the room with your complexion, because your complexion is very foreign to the settings of that camera.
Okay.
And I mean, ideally, it's not rocket science. When you're taking a picture of someone who's darker, because they absorb light, it's a different setting that's required. So when you think about even such things, and social media, as Angela has said, and how we have filters to make you lighter but not to make you darker, it means that everything is geared towards a certain complexion. That if you're that young girl that you're talking about, I would really be worried if I was your mom.
Okay.
Like when we were doing the campaign, there were parents who even said how their young girls were being bullied in school because of their complexion. They were even saying how young girls would then form cliques in school of lighter skinned girls so that they can be accepted. So because I'm dark and I won't be accepted on my own, I'll then form a clique with these 5 girls because they're all light skinned and they're pretty. So because they are popular, I'll also sort of like follow them because now we'll all be popular.
Okay.
And at that age, it's more, I guess, dangerous and more potent because you really want to fit in, but you've been told already by society when you go to social media and see the filters that people put, when you go on billboards, when you go on TV, you've been told by every single facet of society that you're not beautiful. And so the danger then it has on you, that's how you hear kids low self-esteem, getting into depression, committing suicide, just because of such things that some people might think it's like you're committing suicide because of your skin, but no, the pressure to be a certain way is so much for those younger people. I mean, growing up, we didn't have social media. So there was no pressure. You just knew. Actually, some people even in the campaign said, I knew everybody's my complexion until I went to school. And realized, people actually lighter. Or people actually, but you actually think everybody's like you. See, we're in Kenya. I remember when doing the campaign and people saying, is colorism an issue in a black country?
People will ask that a lot.
And you have no idea that it actually is. People miss jobs or get jobs or get promotions or get ahead or get advances because of their complexion.
Okay.
That right there should tell you that colorism is a big deal.
Okay. You know how you wish you had 3 hours? Because then we'd go...
Yes, I know.
We'd go to employment and talk about how, the lighter skinned girl will get the job, yet she's qualified as the black person. But let me ask you this, Angie. When you were talking, I remembered in school, my high school, there was a sport you couldn't play if you are not a certain complexion. So we also have systems that have this mentality of lighter is better. So this show, there are young girls who watch this show, there are mothers who are watching this show with fathers. What would you want to tell the young girl who's watching you and saying, Angie looks so confident, I want to be like her? What would you tell them?
Wow. Of course, this has to be built because of the pressures we have now. They're not the same kind of pressure we had then. So you have to start doing it from a younger age. I know a cousin of mine who would buy Barbie dolls that are dark for her daughter. Okay. Just to tell her that princesses can be dark and beautiful, because this notion when a kid is growing up, all the princesses are normally light skinned, Barbie doll and all that. So I know of a cousin of mine who used to buy, like, everywhere she would go or even travel out of the country and get a Barbie doll that's dark skin. She would buy it for the daughter and tell the daughter, you're beautiful. Like, we have to build this right from when they're growing up, because that's where the foundation is needed. So she grows up believing that it is actually true, because then when you delay that and they grow up realize and find and watch all these Cartoon Networks and all these, beautiful princesses, at some particular point she'll believe she's not pretty, especially if she's dark skinned. Yeah.
Yes.
So you have to start from when they're young, and you have to keep encouraging your daughter. I remember my mom used to tell us a lot of the times, like, it's so beautiful when you leave the house. Like, she just keep reminding you. And her reason was a bit African woman, African mom. She was like, so someone tells you that outside there, just tell them I know.
Okay.
It's also to protect us, so we don't get so excited when a guy tells you you're beautiful. You're like, I already had that from my mom. She keeps telling us a lot. So start when they're young. Build their confidence, keep encouraging them, and just make sure that you show them both, like, it's diverse. We're not saying light skin is not, light skin is beautiful. We are diverse. There's a lot of diversity around. So just keep growing them in the right direction. From when they're young. And then,
Joanne, you have about 40 seconds. What would you want to see change as well in the systems? We talked about the advertising world, media. We talked about acting as well. What would you want to see happen?
Just in those spaces that you've said, because I feel like as much as you start from the home, which I think is a very valid point, because you get affirmation from the home. That's where I got my affirmation. But then I'll get that affirmation and then get out and see, oh, wait a minute, am I really beautiful if all the billboards I'm seeing at this complexion, all the anchors I'm seeing at this complexion? So I feel like it's sort of like multi-layered, where you get your affirmation from the house and from your parents and the people around you as you're growing up. But I feel people who are custodians of media, people who have because media has a lot of influence, a lot of influence and a lot of power to change narratives and to inform conversation. Those are the people who should actually say, as a matter of principle, I am going to make sure that for every light-skinned billboard I put out there, I must counter it with a dark skin. So we sort of like can see a balance, of sorts, from media, from advertising, from music, entertainment, actors and actresses. I'd love to see Angela in a prominent role,
you know?
Ladies, we are literally out of time. Thank you so much, Joanne Kuria, Angela Nancy. Thank you so much. I'm pretty sure there's a young girl somewhere whose life will change after today. And thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night.